Hello everybody, Disciple here with Hearthstone Curios. Jeremy's still shuffling Jade Idols, so in the meantime I'll be taking over for him. A lot of people think that the mean streets of gadgets and meta is pretty close to solved, and while that may or may not be true, you can definitely still win on the ladder without playing the super high tier decks. Now you might be saying, but how, Disciple? Aren't those decks high tier for a reason? Well, yeah, decks like Pirate Warrior, Aggro Shaman, and Miracle Rogue are high tier because they can have explosive starts, have good matchup spreads, and are pretty consistent in what they do. But that doesn't mean that other decks that aren't necessarily super represented in the meta can't be strong as well. They might be great counters, or you may be able to have some nice matchups depending on who you queue into. Today we thought we'd take a look at some creative and interesting decks that can definitely still do well on the ladder, so let's get right into it. First up, let's talk about Evolve Shaman, specifically the awesome combo you can pull off with Doppelgangster Evolve. It's hard to say who first started playing this deck, but Forsen definitely made it popular when he made a run to High Legend with it on stream. The actual deck list is pretty similar to most mid-range Shaman lists, except with even more focus on flooding the board so you can get full value out of your Evolve. Now Doppelgangster and Evolve is a super broken combo, since for just 6 mana, you get 3 random 6 drops. Now 6 drops can range from great to terrible, but since you're getting 3, the chances are pretty likely that you get decent value out of the combo, and you can even get some incredibly high value with cards like Cairn, Sylvanas, Thaurissan, and a few others. The deck also usually runs a copy or two of Bloodlust to take full advantage of having a large board and gives you some great reach against control decks. Playing mid-range Shaman with some things like Doppelgangster, Evolve, and Bloodlust teched in is a pretty strong option right now. It lets you pressure other mid-range and control decks pretty hard without sacrificing too much against the aggro decks, and so it's very fun and a pretty strong deck to play on ladder as well. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Avianna Druid. The Malygos version of this deck is really solid and is actually a fairly popular deck on ladder right now, but it's not quite top tier since it suffers a lot against aggro decks. One really cool innovation that Semfglas made was to use the same combo shell, playing Avianna and then Kun to have 10 mana available and minions costing 1, but to use Cthulhu to win instead. Most of the Cthulhu cultists are great on curve against aggro. Disciple of Cthulhu lets you snipe off low health aggro minions and then leaves a body behind, albeit a small one, that can trade with other stuff. Cthulhu's Chosen gets to trade with 2 things most of the time since it does have Divine Shield, and your opponent isn't going to be attacking it, so you get to choose how it trades. Dark Arakoa and Twin Emperor are also pretty expensive, but if you ramp into them then you can stop aggro in its tracks. This deck also has quite a lot of room for tech cards. Semfglas was playing double Doomsayer and double Loot Hoarder in his list, which lets the deck have some card draw and be really strong against aggro, but there's nothing stopping you from playing some Acidic Swamp Oozes as well or anything else that you might need to help the aggro matchup. You do have to play cards like Nourish and maybe even Lunar Visions since you do need card draw against mid-range and control decks, and this deck's combo may not be quite as consistent, but by sacrificing some of your control and mid-range matchup percentage, which you can usually afford to do since those are good matchups anyway, you get to make the aggro matchup a lot easier for yourself, which is why I think this deck might be a strong option to explore in the current meta. The last deck we're going to talk about today is a very early game oriented Control Warrior. Now normally Control Warrior in this meta is a fairly mid-tier deck, and they typically play all the standard removal and early game stuff that Control Warrior does, and then things like Ysera, Rag, Sylvanas, or Grommash to have some counterplay against the mid-range and control decks and be able to kill them. The deck is pretty good against aggro, although it's definitely possible to lose, and fairly decent against mid-range and control, although your opponent does have to misplay pretty badly or be really unlucky for you to win against things like Reno Lock or Jade Druid. If you're only seeing aggro and Miracle Rogue, then you can actually go super deep and pretty much cut all of your late game for even more armor and removal. As long as you armor past all their bursts and remove all their threats, they'll just lose and you don't actually have to play a huge card like Ragnaros or Ysera to win. Most lists that do this play Elise Starseeker as just a single win condition, but in general you're going to lose to mid-range and control with this type of strategy anyway, so we only recommend this if the meta you're playing in has a very high amount of aggro or Miracle Rogue, since most of those are free wins for this type of deck. Those are some off-meta decks that we think might be pretty good options in the current meta to consider right now. But I want to know, what decks are you guys playing in Standard right now that might be a little bit off-meta, you know, besides the regular old Pirate Warrior or Aggro Shaman? If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd love it if you'd leave a like and subscribe for more future videos from me and Jeremy, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.